All right. Hello, everybody. We are back and we are going to talk about marketing your culture inside and out. It's something that I think is really timely given people's staffing issues, that differentiation conversation that Craig and I were having this morning. I think culture is a big part of that. And these two have great cultures in their own companies, but they also are just full of culture themselves and all sorts of other things. Two of my very good friends, Leslie Wyatt with SoftPro and Lisa Steele with Motherlode Holding Company, are here to share all the things that they've learned over the years, things that they know from others, and I'm sure plenty of other stuff too. So with that, I will turn it over to you guys, and I'm just here to be your slide guy. And otherwise, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us, and thank you for letting me present with Lisa. It's always fun, and I don't get to see her a lot, especially with not traveling so much the past couple years. So hopefully we can do you proud. So we will go ahead and get started. We are going to talk about marketing your culture inside and out. And what we mean by inside and out is essentially you have kind of two cultures. You know, they should be kind of the same. And I'm going to kind of throw this to Lisa here in a second. But you have your internal culture, right? You want to retain employees, and you want people to work in an environment where they're proud, where they're happy, and where they thrive. And that's kind of the inside part. And then you have your external culture. Means what do people perceive your company? What do they see from the outside? What kind of narrative do you want to tell? And why is it important? Because you have partners and transactions that you're doing business with, and that's what they see from the outside. And then also when you're trying to hire, when you need new talent, and Wayne just mentioned, we have kind of a staffing crisis in the country right now. So your external culture is as important as your internal and the narrative that you are sending out there. So Wayne, if you could go ahead and pop that second slide up. Okay, so we're going to talk about internal first, and I am going to let Lisa kind of talk about this because I think she's got a really good viewpoint on how selling your story. People kind of ask sometimes, what is your story? What do you mean by story? I mean, story is, your narrative, your culture. What are you trying to create? So, Lisa, maybe you could talk a little bit about, selling your story and just kind of how people can go about it and how important it is. Lisa, I think you might be on mute. I can't hear you.
I was being very careful as to not speak over you. So, I think we say selling your story versus telling your story because that's an important twist. It's a small twist, but with a big meaning, because you can tell your story. But if you don't know your audience, if you're not speaking directly to the the group, right, in the manner in which you want to get the message across, nobody's going to listen. So selling your story is a great way to tell your story, right? So internally and externally, those may be two different things. Right now we're talking about internally. So I think the most important thing is, do you have a story that your internal crew is aware of, that has bought into, that has clear messaging, and that is different? We talk about being having gratitude or saying thank you or building a culture. We all say, we gather as an industry and we say, gosh, our culture is different from the rest, or our culture is better. And sometimes we don't explain the why behind that. And the why comes internally from our folks. Why do they feel that our culture is better than the competitor down the street, right? And internally, if we take care of our culture, or keep our folks happy, have a consistent common thread of messaging, show appreciation and gratitude on a regular basis, externally, our culture comes across a lot better as well, right? Because happy employees, it's like California, happy cows, good cheese. That's what they say. I'm based in California, so I can make that joke, right? But it's, our internal culture is a direct reflection on our external culture as well. So taking the measures to show them, not only tell them, I'll give you an example. In our company, we foster an employee appreciation. And we say, we hope you feel it 365 days a year, but one day a year, we will actually make it a point to visit each branch to appreciate them personally, give them a little thank you, throw a little dough in an envelope, branded Starbucks card, whatever the case may be. But, we're in our branches regularly on a consistent basis, but showing them by having a specific time. We talk about the culture. We just, get feedback. How are we doing on our culture? Because that's the other thing, Wayne says it all the time, ask or you don't know. So it's a perfect time to, visit with them, make sure that we have a clear, concise message, and we're doing the right things to keep our culture alive and well.
Yeah, and that kind of speaks to both those bullet points there of selling your story. I mean, we could have done 45 minutes on selling your story, right? And how to come up with it and how to make sure that that's the message that you want to send out there. But at the end of the day, and I know Wayne has talked about this a lot, and I know you have and I have, if you don't have internal buy-in, if you will, it's one thing to say, this is our company culture. It's another thing to live it, right? So saying it really doesn't mean anything. It's important because people have to understand what it is. But if you don't act on it, to your point of going around, once a year to each branch, even though it's just once a year, like you said, you're doing stuff all throughout the year, but that one day a year, they know you're making that extra effort to come wherever they are in the country and, just thank them for what they're everything when you're trying to sell your story, if you will.
Right.
And
it's just it's a great opportunity to revisit, right? The culture. We preach the culture, all the time. We live it, we involve them, but it's a great way to touch base on your culture in person with every single employee, at least at a minimum one day a year, just to make sure you're not missing the mark.
yeah, and as far as, the actions and the internal buy-in, as you get new employees too, you're not there day to day, right? So those are the people that are truly living and experiencing and putting out your message. So you have to have that buy-in, and also you have to be able to kind of change with the times. So what you think is working right now may not work by the end of this year, may not work next year, whatever the case may be. So you kind of, it's kind of fluid, and a lot of people kind of think, okay, we have our culture, this is our story, and that's all they have to do. When the reality is, you want that feedback, you want to talk to them, you want to say, hey, do you like when we do this? They might surprise you. And we're going to talk a little bit about this later and say, yeah, I really want something more tangible. I get that this is extra bonus in my paycheck, but I'm not going to use that for anything fun. So, just kind of talk to people internally and kind of keep that conversation going, and you'll be able to sell your story a lot better for the long haul.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so telling the right story I thought was really good. And this was something you had mentioned. And I love this because selling your story is one thing, but if you're selling something that people aren't buying or that really isn't along the lines of what you are doing in your office, then you're not telling the right story. So just coming up with a story or a culture really isn't enough. You have to make sure that that's a right fit. And you want to make sure that you are in control of that and that you are sending out that message loud and clear internally and externally, but in this case, internally. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what you think the difference is between selling a story, but also telling the right story.
I think the important difference is listening, right? Because if we don't know what our the needs for our internal staff are, the needs of our customers, of our consumers, if we're not listening to what their needs and wants are, we don't know how to tell our story to meet them where they are, right? I mean, people today, they care about your goods and services, but they care more about your values, what a match you are for them, right? I think, today the consumer has changed in the way that it's not just about shopping for maybe the best price or, the best widget. It's looking for an amazing experience. So I think you have to understand what is the right message for the right category of people that you're looking to reach. And so, many times people just like blast a story. This is our culture. This is our story. For our example, for my company, right? We're a 49-year-old company started by a very sweet man who had an amazing vision. Well, we talk about Leo all the time. So our customers know who Leo is. Our employees know who Leo is. But, that story about Leo shifts depending on the audience as well. And I think that you really have to look at that. in telling the right story to the segment in which you're pushing it out, right? You're marketing your story, you're marketing your culture, and you have to look at it like that. It can't just be a blanket, here we go, our website, we're going to set it and forget it, right? You're always continually marketing your culture, whether it's wanting to for your customers to have this amazing experience with you because you built the culture to match their needs. And I think it goes down to personalizing their experience. And how do you do that without listening or knowing what they want?
And Linda mentioned something earlier in her presentation regarding like the websites, and it's pertinent here as well. She made a point of saying, "Hey, we just redid it," and literally, like basically right after it launched, she's already starting on updating it again because based on that, the market changes, your employee needs changes, the consumer has changed. Like you just said, they're looking for different stuff, so you kind of have to always listen. Both internally and externally. And you have a lot of partners in our industry, right? We have realtors, we have lenders, we have mortgage brokers, we have, our internal title people. And depending on where you are, you have escrow companies and such. So listen to them as well. They're the ones that may be sending consumers your way. And you want to make sure that they're sending them your way and that you're able to meet the needs of the consumers that they're working with. So I'll also quickly just talk about this, make your message loud and clear. I had seen too many companies where it's just people really can't explain or pinpoint what their culture is. Now, I don't expect anybody to just, recite exactly what it is. Well, here's our values or whatnot. It's more of just what the culture is, what's the beliefs of the company, which really comes down to kind of why they want to work there, right? I mean, obviously the obvious parts of vacation time and benefits and pay, which again, we kind of will talk about. But in today's society, there's a lot more to it. And making sure that your message is out there and that you've controlled that narrative and you've made it clear, both internally and externally, goes a really long way in not only retaining talent, but also acquiring new talent. And so if you haven't really thought past, I just want to create this cozy little environment where everybody wants to work, you have to kind of also make sure, does anyone outside of your company know that? Because short of somebody talking to someone within your company, if you don't get out there and talk to people and spread the word and the word that you want, you're not going to really have any idea what's out there. And neither is other people that maybe are looking to, switch to our industry or for a different position. So just make sure that you're thinking both internally and externally and really making sure the message that you put out there is something that you want.
And that's a great point too, Leslie, because, you're internally, you hope that, those people are the greatest storytellers you have, right? Yeah. When they're talking to friends in the industry and they're living the culture and they believe in it, they should be the best storytellers that you have. So
yeah, they're essentially, if you will, I mean, in today's world, they're brand ambassadors, they're influencers, they are your eyes and ears and mouth out there, right? A lot of us are more admin level and really don't, we're not the day-to-day in front of the consumers and such anymore. And so these are the people that you need to make sure that they understand the message because that's what they're going to be relaying. So, all right, Wayne, can we go to the next slide? Okay, so we talked about telling your story versus selling your story, but that's all well and good, putting it all together and making sure you have it. But how do you showcase it? How do you highlight it? It's one thing to kind of write down, and people write a mission statement and they write down their values and then they write down, okay, here's the culture I want to create around that. But how do you showcase it? Because just putting it up on the wall and everybody sees it when they walk in isn't going to cut it. You need to really practice your culture daily. And I absolutely love the next piece right here. And this, Lisa put this in here, and I couldn't agree more. The lost art of gratitude. I think it is probably one of the most underutilized form of creating a culture where people want to work out there. And just the smallest things of gratitude or, actions of gratitude go a long way. I'll just give you a quick example and then let you speak to it. But we use Teams at our company, and we also have been around for around 40 years, and everybody knows about our founder Lauren Harrell. They're great stories. He started in the garage, and like you said, I mean, depending on who we're talking to, the stories are a little different, right? But like what you might focus on, but everybody knows that, and it's such a proud thing for him to have gotten it where it is, and they kind of want to continue that. And the great part is he still comes around, and so when he comes in, everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's who he is. And so we do that as well. But we use Teams, and there's a whole separate channel on Teams, which is a coworker shout out. And at first people are kind of like, okay. And then people started using it. And I will tell you, and this, especially kind of with a larger company, you do a lot through email or by pinging someone, but you don't know face to face, and not everyone knows each other. They know that they work in a particular department and what they do, but they don't know them. This particular channel has taken off, and I can't tell you how many people have gone to their managers or vice presidents and saying how great it is that they can actually kind of make the whole company aware of great customer service somebody gave or great internal help. Mostly is internal help, but sometimes it's because they jumped in and helped a customer. But it's just showing the gratitude between peers. And that itself facilitates such a great work environment because people want to do better. They want to help you, not because they want to shout out, but because they know you appreciate it. And if I know someone appreciates something, I'm obviously going to go ahead and try and do a better job or go above and beyond. And so when you had sent this, to be included in here, the Lost Art of Gratitude, I could not agree more. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you guys implement it.
Yeah, so what we've really noticed in the last 2 years, and I think everybody is in the same boat, right? Everybody's busy. It's been a game changer in our world with everything that's gone on, COVID. There's a whole lot of political thing. I mean, there's negativity everywhere you can look, right, to find it. But what we've noticed is even in transactions, it used to be that people were very thankful to have a closing done or a completed transaction, and even a simple thank you started to just disappear from our environment, and the stress levels became higher. The pressures were, it was a crazy busy market everywhere for everyone. And it became more natural just to keep hammering through, right? And forget about gratitude because we were getting jobs done that needed to be done. We were hustling, and at the end of the day, you kind of sat back and you said, I don't even know what just happened, but evidently, we made it through, right? We were all just happy to have made it through the day. We were learning new technology. We were trying to figure out how to be remote. I mean, all of those things. And so not only has gratitude been a growing lost art, I think because, if you look back in the olden days, I'm going to talk about mom and dad here, there were always handwritten cards all the time, right? Now, then we kind of started, well, I'll just send them a quick email, thank you. Or I'll just, it was pick up the phone, then it was an email, then it was maybe a text. And now maybe we're too busy and we kind of forget to even say a simple thank you. And I say a simple thank you because I don't think you don't need to overthink it, right? Gratitude doesn't always have to be this, perfect, thoughtful gift, although that's nice too. It needs to be a recognition of, hey, you're going above and beyond. Hey, I know you've had a tough day. Thank you so much for hanging in there. Hey, we know that, it's been frustrating. Thank you for showing up today with a smile on your face and taking care of your teammates. Because I think that, again, we get so busy on our hamster wheels. You and I talked about this earlier, Leslie. I mean, no one's busier than the next person, but everybody's busy. And so it's really easy to let simple things like that just fly to the wayside. I'll give you an example. I had just sent out a card to somebody, and I still do a lot of handwritten cards, and just basically like, hey, how's your day? Keeping in touch, whatever. If it's somebody I haven't seen in a few weeks, or and I just there was a transaction that closed that we knew was very intense, and just sent a, hey, way to go card out. And I received a call not 2 hours later, right, from sending the card, from one of our escrow officers, just absolutely in tears, in like sobbing, saying, I can't even tell you how much this card meant. Well, it took 5 minutes. It would be easy to just keep going on with your day and not recognize that, hey, we need to slow down sometimes and think about what's going on around us, and taking those steps of gratitude. And it was such a small gesture that it just, it kind of, it hurt my heart in a way, right? Because I'm like, wow, I know how hard this industry is on all fronts, right? No matter what role you play, as a realtor, as a lender, as in escrow and title, and as a vendor. I mean, there's stress every step of the way. So I think, just focusing on gratitude and making sure that, daily you say, okay, I'm going to practice like five acts of gratitude today. Because not only does it turn, I've found it turns my mood around if I'm like buried in self-pity. It turns my mood around, but certainly if I can touch somebody else and turn their day around, it's a win. So I think that, that is part of practicing our culture. And we send that same message to all of our management and staff. I mean, practice culture, or practice gratitude with your customers. Say thank you to your customers, even when you feel like they're not, practicing gratitude right back. Maybe it'll start in them.
Yeah, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything to be nice, as my mom always said growing up, and it doesn't cost anything to just tell somebody. It doesn't have to be a major thing. To your point, it could literally be like, hey, great job on that closing, thanks for staying and getting it done, or hey, thanks for calling the lender, doing this, that, or the other. In our end, we always try and acknowledge other departments that have really helped us from a compliance standpoint. And it's just the tiniest little thing that people are just like, oh, okay, people recognize what I'm doing, because we're all busy, as you said, and people have their heads down and they're just trying to get the work done, especially in our industry where everything kind of leads up to the end of the month when everyone's trying to close. And so for someone to recognize, like, I get it, you're working hard, we see you, we hear you. It doesn't need to be a monetary thing. It doesn't need to be anything even tangible, which, that's nice too, is like you said, but sometimes it's just the recognition of somebody in your organization saying, hey, great job. Like, this is a great environment for you. We're going to acknowledge you and hear you and see you. And again, that's the message that employee is then going to put out there to your partners for an external culture type situation. So,
well, our next bullet point's employee involvement, right? So to your point, it helps when you have an organization where everybody fosters that, right? Because I wouldn't have known about this situation. It didn't get elevated to executive level if somebody hadn't have said, wow, this closing was tough, for this person. And because that was a reaction. Well, oh my gosh, you guys have 1,200 employees. How did you even know that, I did this, And I think because when you involve all employees, everybody wants good news to be shared. Yes. Everybody wants to commend other people, and fostering that environment. When we're busy, we forget, but fostering that environment, I think is really helpful in the long run.
And when you say including everybody, we mean everybody, from the person who may greet people that coming in, to the appointment takers, to answering the phones, to pre-closing, to closing, to post-closing, to everybody, even accounting and policy. For our industry, every other industry has their own type of workflow, but everybody needs to not only feel, that they are seen and heard, but they also need to know that they're part of that culture, meaning if they weren't there, it wouldn't be the same environment. And I think that is overlooked sometimes. So the whole employee involvement is kind of also what Wayne was saying, always listen, talk to them, talk to everybody. Who's the first person that sees your customer? Whoever is sitting up front, that person knows more about the perception of your company than anybody else, I promise you. And they're also one of your best ambassadors. That's your first impression, and best salespeople for that matter, which also Linda talked about earlier. So don't just think it's a high level thing. Okay, we need to create a culture. It's everybody, involve everybody, get feedback from everybody. When you do that and they're part of it and they feel part of it, they're going to want to buy in. So it kind of leads to the next one, which is, don't be better, be different. Everybody can kind of follow the same thing. Be nice to your teammates, be nice to your partners and so on and so forth. But you kind of have to figure out a way to do all that, which should be just the norm. And then also kind of a way to stand out a little bit, right? And I think your company does that great. I know we do as well. I can give some examples, but I think that you guys do a really good job with that.
Yeah, this has been a mantra for ours for years. Leo said it in a speech in, early 80s. He said, he's talking about the message and the development of our and continuation of our culture. And he says, just don't be better, be different.
Yeah.
And it resonated with me so much because I think, our initial reaction is like, oh, no matter what your role is, right? What's the competitor doing? Do I need that widget? Do I need this flyer? Do I need this, software? What do I need this? Does this make me competitive? And I think there's two ways to look at that. One, separate the tools, right? We're talking about culture. So separate the tools. But when you're talking about our culture and how to build a company and an environment, that's what our focus is, right? As long as you have the tools, those things will come out, right? You're talking with your customers all the time. You're talking with your staff. You'll know if there's something you need to add that's, piece of technology or whatever. But when we're talking about not being better, be different, how do you differentiate yourself? Because you're right, Leslie, everybody says, well, our culture's the bomb because right, we create it. So, as long as our people have buy-in and that we are doing the right thing, we don't ever have a problem sharing what we do in our company, because we've had a lot of competitors try to copy and they just can't get the secret sauce of what it is, right? I think it goes back to just a long-standing belief in, we have in what we stand for and how we implement our culture. So instead of worrying about what the competitors are doing, we worry about how to reevaluate our culture all the time so that we're not just staying 45 years into a thought process or 49 years into a thought process. And I think that has to be, kind of the beacon, right? We're not looking I don't care about what our competition is doing out there. All I care about is, at the end of the day, how do our customers feel? How do our employees feel? How do our vendors feel? I mean, even relationships, your culture really says who you are, what your values are, how you, interact with people as a company and as a person. And, that is really our compass.
Yeah. And I will add to that. It starts at the top, which I think is sometimes lost. If people don't feel like your upper management or executive teams is kind of in tune with what they're doing or company culture, I don't mean day to day, every little step someone's doing, but just in general, like your comment there about how you knew someone had a hard closing, so you reached out to them. That is pretty much the same type of philosophy that we have. And at the end of the day, our executive management team really truly is about, are you happy doing what you're doing? Because that's first and foremost. We want you to leave work to go home to your family happy. And we understand that can't happen every day. You have a stressful day or whatnot. But overall, we don't want you dreading coming to work. And we certainly don't want you going home in a bad mood. Also, at the end of the day, without customers, and customers are title agents, are people who purchase it because we're a vendor, our customers vary. But at the end of the day, without customers, we are nothing. We could have the best product on earth, but if we can't put out there how great our company is and how much we appreciate them, it doesn't matter. And so one thing that we have done for years, I've been with my company for almost 20 years, crazily enough, because I'm very, very young, is when we have management team meetings, we have an empty chair. And I know this sounds really weird and kind of corny, but it's the customer. Because sometimes we get caught up and be like, oh, this is shiny and this is a cool bell and a whistle and whatnot, or we can change this. And we kind of have to reel ourselves back in and say, is this something that's going to benefit them and then also the employees here? So I couldn't agree more with everything that you're saying, but it's without customers, we're nothing. And without great employees, we're nothing. So you have to make sure everyone is happy and everyone feels that they're being, thanked, that the people are being appreciated, and so on and so forth. So I think that is kind of a lost thing that people don't realize. They think they just put it out there and this team will take care of their team, that manager will take care of their team, when really it's a bigger picture and everyone wants to be part of that big team, even though they may do different roles. So, we're going to talk about perks and benefits on another slide. I just put it on here because it's something that even internally you should, continuously do, but we'll talk about it on another slide. So Wayne, if you want to go ahead and move forward. So, we're going to move on to external culture and then also how to hire. So I'm going to toss this to you because I love this and I think you can talk to about better than myself, but authenticity rocks. I could not agree more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. So, I think it comes back to don't try to be who you're not, because in the end, you're never going to be able to, pull it off. Whether you're giving a presentation, whether you're, fostering your culture, I think if you have a clear message and, internally and externally, your customers know who you are. We've always been, so I'm gonna talk about the title industry. I know we have, varying industries on the call today, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about the title industry. Land title industry has always been a very, very professional, serious industry. And so, I think when you look at what you want your company, how you want your culture to be perceived by your customers, you have to show a personality. And maybe if you're an attorney in the middle, of wherever, or, you're an attorney in New York, you have to show a little bit more of a serious culture, right? Because not only do you need to represent value to your customers, but you also need to show personality on top of that, right? So you're going to have a different authenticity to some degree. I think no matter what, and this is, we've polled customers across the U.S. and just in looking at, marketing research, no matter how serious your customer base, people like to deal with people that they can relate to or companies that they can relate to. So yes, you may have a very serious, service that you're providing, but at the end of the day, authenticity rocks, because you need to show what your personality is. You need to show that you do have a one, whether you're, a very serious commercial closing attorney, you can get the job done and your efficiencies are there, but you also need to show that you're a human being that, has a personality and that you have likes and dislikes and you have interests, and don't be afraid to put it out there to customers. Because I think, we all tend to say, okay, our websites need to be very, very professional because people are looking for us. But oftentimes those customers or those people are looking for a personality as well. They want to know who you are, and don't be afraid to showcase your internal staff to your external people. That's always been a thought process of many, right? Like, oh, we don't want to put everybody out there because you know what, then the competitors might know who our people are. Well, if they're good, they know who they are anyway, right?
Yeah.
So showcase them, allow them to be, presenting their human side and their personality. Our company for 49 years has done so many philanthropic things, and we did a horrible job of talking about it and sharing it. Right? We're active in all of our communities, and, we've helped build, step up, hand up for, homeless areas. And all these things that we were doing, and we just knew it internally, but we never really showed that part of our personality externally, and how important it was for us to be involved in our communities in that way, and how we do like to have fun. Right? So showcase your fun moments, when you're in the office and, it's, wine 30 at 6 p.m. and you are all having a great time now, obviously, tastefully, but show that side of the personality as well. Make sure that people can see your authenticity, because really, at the end of the day, people want to do business with people that they can relate to. And they're not going to be able to make that connection unless they know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll even extend that to people want to work with people they can relate to. Doesn't mean we have to be best friends. Doesn't mean we even have to have the same interests. But to your point, everything doesn't need to be so business oriented. You want to think of them as people. Your coworkers have actual lives and families and things that they like to do. And in today's world with social media, you really have a platform to put out there all the good that your company does, which was one thing that from a hiring standpoint, people are looking for. But, I think as a whole, our industry has always been kind of very buttoned up tight and I think over time some of that has changed. I think as we've gotten younger people into the industry, that has changed. And I also think with COVID and the whole remote and hybrid and everybody, embracing video and chat and social media, that has changed. And it really is a platform where you can show your true self so that people relate to it. That at the end of the day, I can Google and pull up probably 30 title companies within 1 mile of me that could do my closing. So if there's something that stands out where I feel a connection and it, ties into your company and your culture, put it out there, because that's why people may choose you. And that's why people may want to work with you, whether it's a realtor, a lender, or a consumer. And as we have here, customers are people too. And, we've already talked about that, but, they're not just a piece of paper, a name on a paper and a transaction. They want to be part of that culture that we are facilitating and that we're putting out there. So if we move on to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about, selling your culture is as easy as 1, 2, 3. And I know we talked about telling and selling internally. It's the same thing. So, in this case, we're talking more of an external, kind of how to attract people to yours, not just putting out there, hey, we're great. We want a perception from our partners. This is more of like, why should somebody come work for you? Gone are the days where you put out an ad and people line up and you interview them. And then suddenly it's like, you get to pick from the top 3. They're picking you nowadays, right? They're not, there's so many jobs out there. They're saying like, well, what do you have to offer that makes you different? Kind of goes back to, don't be better, be different. What makes you different that I should come work for you? And in this particular instance, we're talking more about how to attract this top talent. So you can create job descriptions that sell. Like, put in your basics. I get it. Everybody has to have some sort of thing so someone knows what the job is. But at the end of the day, you need to make it more interesting. We talked about team members being brand ambassadors. Nobody can speak to your culture better than someone who currently works there. Nobody can sell a role within your company to somebody who you are interested in hiring than somebody that works there. I can promise you, allowing them to sit in on an interview and having a peer-to-peer interview and letting people talk to people that might do the job or roles that they're going to do, I can tell you that would go over tenfold versus just talking to an executive manager who doesn't do that role. So think about your team members as influencers and ambassadors. If we're talking about social media, they also can post stuff for you. But in this case, attracting talent, let them be your mouth. I mean, you may know everything they're going to say, but coming from them, it's going to have such a different impact than coming from someone who's just sitting across the table managing. Sitting across the table is another one too. I don't know about you guys, but we do interviews so completely different. We do them on camera. We allow them to submit video clips. And you can tell a lot about somebody in a 1-minute video clip, right? So we kind of just have to start thinking of, okay, how do we sell our culture out there? Not to so much our business partners, but to prospective employees and people that we want to recruit, top talent. And with video and with everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people working hybrid or remote, your talent pool has now expanded. So you may be dealing with people who don't necessarily know you as well, maybe in your market because they don't live there. So this is your chance to shine and tell them all the great things about you that really doesn't have too much to do with their role, but more as you as a company and why you should and come to work for us. Because at the end of the day, and I know this is shocking to our industry and people may or may not like this, but at the end of the day, a good employee can do almost any role within your organization. So it's more important to find the right fit from a personality wise and a culture wise than it is for a particular role. Sometimes we've interviewed people and said, well, they're not really, equipped for this, but they're fantastic. We're going to see if they want this job or this job because they're just a great fit for our company. building out your employee and your company like that, at the end, you're going to have just amazing people working that can probably job share. They can do different things, but most importantly, they're going to be able to sell the culture to everyone that they come in contact with. So we've kind of changed and shifted to that, of saying, hey, I mean, you're not a great fit for this, but you're really a great fit for this. And even sometimes internally, someone's not super happy doing what they're doing, but they're a great employee. We'll just find another role for them if they're interested, of course. And I don't know that we've ever really looked at that in the past. I think this is what the job is. Do you want it or not? And we'll get back to you. That's not the case now. They'll get back to us if they're interested. And we're all, everyone's, there's 15 companies going after one person. So you really have to think about that. And then I have in here, highlight your perks, which we're going to, and one of the next slides is about. Gone are the days of just, here's your, 2 weeks vacation. Here's your salary. You might get a bonus. That's assumed at this point. That's not a selling point. So really highlight things that your company might, think about offering. And Wayne, if you go down to the next slide, Lisa, I'm going to have you chime in here about some of these things that maybe you guys do. I talked about this job description, make sure it's not just a qualification or a function, but can you talk a little bit of how you guys go about attracting this talent and, thinking about it from, this is a person that I want at my company. Yes, this is the role for them, but let's go ahead and write it so that we can think through, not just the skills. I'm only going to talk to people who, I think can have a skill level, but just personality. I feel like your company does a really good job of matching up personalities.
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, I think, you said so many great things along with the last slide. And I think, I agree with everything you've said. I think the challenge is, being able to look past, like you said, the square peg round hole kind of situation. You either meet this person out in a service role and you're like, wow, they're amazing. We need them to be part of our culture, because again, it's all growth of culture. We have had highly successful people in our organization that just didn't fit in our culture. So we moved on, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't a great relationship for either one. I think finding people that have a match for the culture, personalities, instead of putting down receptionist, right? If you're looking for a job description or you're talking to somebody, say, how do you, are you interested in being a rock star of first impressions? Yeah. Because that sounds a little bit better than, hey, how do you feel about answering phones and directing, customers in the office? Yeah. So I think it's all a matter of how we approach it. I was at a women's leadership event, and somebody had made up business cards that said, "You are awesome. I'd love for you to join our company," right? And just a simple phone number on the back. And every time they met somebody that excelled in a service sector, they were like, "Here you go. You might be happy in your job, but if you ever consider making a career change, call me. Let's talk for 15 minutes about what our industry does, and let's go from there." So I think it's getting creative too, in how you meet these people. Internally is an amazing resource. Great people that fit the culture normally know other great people that will fit well in the culture too. So use incentives, for your employees, because sometimes you get busy and you don't think about it. Right. If you actively ask your employees, hey, do you know anybody? We're really looking for, this position in this office. Do you know anybody that might fit that role? Oh, shoot. Yeah, I do. But it's not something they thought of, right? It wouldn't just be a natural, oh, I'm always thinking about people to bring on to our company. So I think, that's a really good way to approach that as well.
Yeah. And, another thing to think about too is that, I don't want to put down my industry because I've been in it forever. It's not rocket science. So if it's all about personality and who can do what, so just find that right fit and make sure your descriptions and the people, what you're putting out there is going to attract that right fit. So Wayne, if we jump down to that next slide, we can talk a little bit more about this. I'm dying because I'm wondering if you can all hear my dog drinking his water that he somehow just got inside.
It's authentic, Leslie.
Yeah, right? I mean, listen, I'm sure you saw me going like this, trying to tell him like he's a person.
And we've lost Wayne. Wayne,
I know.
where
I'm like,
are
where is
you?
he? Can I move this? Oh, there he is. Never mind. Okay. So everything we've talked about today really is kind of thinking outside the box, right? We're not trailblazers. You know how to run your companies and your businesses. What we're trying to say is a little bit more like, just because we've always done it a certain way doesn't, that's really not how we can continue. We are living and working in different times. So you had kind of alluded to this earlier, Lisa, but in today's society, people are really interested in social causes, and that doesn't necessarily, that's not political, please, everyone. So what I mean is more of, volunteering and community and being part of a bigger picture of things. So when I was saying earlier, okay, here's your pay, here's your vacation, that's assumed. That's because it is assumed. People want to know more about what you have to offer and what you do as a company. And one of the greatest ways to showcase that is what you can do to stand out within your community. So I mentioned a few things from our aspect is we give time off for people to go volunteer. We will set it up, or they can go to HR and say, hey, this is the organization I want. And we're like, fantastic. They come back rejuvenated. Sometimes they recruit other team members. Sometimes they do it as a team. We have particular organizations that we as a company work with in our headquarters area, but I've reached out. I'm one of the only people here in Chicago. I've reached out and said, hey, I really think this is a great organization that we do some stuff, my family does stuff with. And they've been like, absolutely, here, let's help out. Let's do this. So make sure all the good that you're doing is known, if you will. And that's kind of what you were saying earlier, Lisa. You guys had done it for years, but have never really showcased it, right? Well, now we have social media. We have, I can tell you right now, anyone that comes to interview for your company has looked at your webpage, LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok. They've gone to social Facebook and Twitter, and they are trying to find out everything about your company and other stuff that's just not the norm. Everyone that's come in there probably knows what a closer does, but they want to know about this. They want to know, what do you guys do outside of that? How are you integral part of our community, and how are you lifting up our community? Because I want to be a part of that through work, not just on my spare time. And another, kind of trailblazing thing to think about is, how about embracing some of this young talent that you're bringing in to lead these projects? They have a different take and things that we might not think of, or being involved in ways that we might not have thought of. Maybe we're used to, going down to kind of a soup kitchen or a pantry and helping out, or some of bigger organizations. Embrace that young talent and put that as part of an opportunity within the job when you're trying to attract talent. Like, we like to do this, and we welcome anyone's input, and we need leaders to help with the community projects and such. So really highlighting this will set you apart. It'll make you different.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah. Wayne, could you go the next slide? He probably hates that I asked him to do the slides. All right, so I can't stress this next piece enough, and I think both our companies do a great job with this. And if you are not doing this within your company, you need to. I don't want to take too much time going over everything here, because I don't want to cut into anyone else's speaking time. But gone are those days of your regular benefits. People just don't need it. You have to, people just have different lifestyles. One of the things I'll drop down here to the cafeteria plans, people ask about this all the time. There's a lot of plans and benefits that you can offer where people don't have to pick all the same options. They can say, hey, I really need pet insurance. I don't have a child. Well, I mean, my pet is my child, but I don't need a family healthcare plan, or I don't even need healthcare because I have it through my parents because I'm 22, but I do really want this, that, and the other. And they know that as the years go on, when they're with your company, they can change what they choose, right? So it's a cost savings for a lot of them. They're not paying into something, they're not getting anything out, but it's almost customizable. And that is a huge selling point, especially for young talent. I mean, flexibility, of course, we could talk about that all day long. I think we've learned in the past 2 years, if you are not flexible, you are not going to make it in our industry anymore. And so I had just put on there, hours and remote and hybrid. What do you care if someone works 9 to 5? I mean, honestly, right? If you're not someone that has to be on the phone or in front of a customer or physically doing something with someone, I don't personally care if anyone on my team works 9 to 5, if they work 10 to 6, if they work 9 to 11 and then go do what they need to do and come back. It definitely depends on the role, but just be open-minded in what you can offer people, because people have had a taste of work-life balance and they like it. I'm one of those people. I'm sure most people have. They want to maintain it. By maintaining it, they're going to be much happier and much better employees, and they're going to be a much better teammate to the people around them as well. So I'll also put in here and then ask if you guys do any of these, but the getting creative. Earlier in the slides, I said, some people want tangible versus perceived. So what I meant by that is someone does a great job, or, we had a great quarter, we're going to give a bonus to everyone, or a stock plan option, whatever it may be. Getting that in your paycheck, yes, everyone is appreciative of that, right? At the end goal, they're working to make money, to pay their bills. So more money is always going to be appreciated. But it's kind of just there. Most people aren't going to do anything with it, right? It's just there, and it's probably going to go to pay something. I know this is a big thing with Wayne. He and I talked about this before. So having something tangible, while might even be less money to the company, might mean more to your employees and create that gratitude that we're talking about within your culture. Subscriptions. I'm stealing Wayne's. He always talks about this. If someone listens to music all day while they work, then maybe you pay for their Spotify subscription. It's going to cost you next to nothing, but they're going to love it because it's something tangible that they have. Also, you have your, childcare options. If you have a sick child, maybe your company has a room or something that they can come and hang out in because they don't really have anywhere to go, but you don't want them at home. My company does a thing called, I put in here Snappy Gifts because a lot of people ask, hey, where do you get these ideas? Snappy is an actual app. And what it does is it allows you to go in and say, hey, you can pre-pick items that your employees can pick from, or you can put dollar amounts on them. But it allows people to go in and pick things that they want. I mean, right? I mean, mind blown. You can say everyone gets $100 and everybody can pick what they want. Like, people love that. They lose their minds. Gift cards. You mentioned like Starbucks gift cards. And I mean, fun company events are nice and they shouldn't go away. But a lot of people also don't think that that's really a perk in some instances, because they're at work all day with these people. They kind of want to go home to their families. So, it's a little bit different. And then, of course, the whole bring your pet to work. Everybody has pets now. They've spent time with them. I know that's a huge thing for a lot of people, but just kind of think, what can we offer outside your standard health and vacation? It'll go tenfold. I'm telling you, it makes such a difference of things that you can do and offer people. I can't even put into words. I could do a whole hour on this. Somebody I'm just reading questions as I'm talking. It's called Snappy. Yeah, it's called Snappy. And I can actually send this stuff to Wayne for anyone that wants to look at it. But I don't know what your thoughts are, some things that you guys do, but I know you guys are, extremely big on recognition, which is fantastic. And I'm just interested to hear what you guys might do.
Yeah, I think do things along the same line. We have Snappy as well. We've got some other options, but really connecting. So for remote, employees, that's been kind of a new thing for our company in the last couple years. And so how to continue to, I know Leslie, you and Wayne have always had, remote situations. Yeah. And so for us being new, it was like, how do we keep them, involved with the team and not feel like they're lost on an island? And so the communication and just the gifts and the benefits of, kind of having team huddles. I noticed in the chat, there's a question about imbalancing employees have to be in the office with resentment, frustration with other employees who now get to work from home. And we've seen that happen too. Yeah. It's like, well, why do I have to be here? Well, our industry still has paperwork, unfortunately. I mean, to the degree that it would, be 100% remote, we still have customers walking in the door. We still have those things. So I think not forgetting that the care and concern we show to keep our remote employees still part of our team, having that same care and concern within the offices, adding some flexibility to scheduling for the people that can. Maybe they're, become a hybrid situation, right? And rotate through the office a couple days a week so that you don't have anyone that is 100% full-time in the office that has those frustrations about being remote or feeling like they're left out of a flexible work situation. So I think the answer to that question is fairly difficult because every situation is different. If you have an opportunity to maybe, again, rotate people through so there's not the same frustration. Sometimes just communicating, we had a situation where somebody was like, I just feel like they're home and they're not doing anything because they're posting on social media all day long, and it's like, okay, number one, that your remote employees are productive, right? Because they have tasks that need to be completed. So having those conversations with other people that may feel left out because a person is, again, posting on social media all day long that they're doing all of these wonderful, brilliant things while they're working from home, needs to be a conversation with that person that is working remote as well, saying, okay, this, your partners are feeling that this representation is maybe not what's really happening at home. We know how hard you're working, but the perception becomes others' reality. So again, every situation is different. Communicate, and we are in 9 different states. So the answer to your question on perks and benefits and all of that, they vary within operations. Sometimes they vary within county, right? So
no, we're the same way.
Really, it comes down to the key word you said, flexibility, right?
Yeah.
Know what is important, listen, and figure out a way to match that so that you can retain talented employees and attract more talented employees.
I could not agree more. We have one more slide, and I know we're going over time, so I don't want to give Wayne a heart attack. So I'll just quickly mention that when you are talking to people, people in today's world, believe it or not, are looking to kind of put some roots in with a company, not so much jumping around than they have in the past. And I can't stress enough to you the importance of building a career roadmap for people. If you want people to take their job seriously, like this is their career, they're not just a closer, like 9 to 5, whatnot, but this is my actual career. This is what I want to do. And maybe I am doing this for a couple years, and then I see myself doing this, and I see myself doing this. You have to make sure that people know that that's even an option. So many companies do not look beyond tomorrow, right? And I get it, everybody's busy and people don't really know where to start. Well, you start by talking to your employees. It's clear when certain employees have the it factor, right? They say, okay, they're a great closer, but they really need to be a closing manager. The way that they work with people and deal with situations, they have it. And this is someone who's probably also interested in it. So you need to sit down and talk to people. Or when you're trying to attract people, you need to say, hey, here's the role. Our company believes in internal growth. It's an investment for us to bring you on, just like it's a investment for you to come here. And so this is kind of where we see this role going. And if that role is literally never going to go anywhere, that's okay also. That's what some people are looking for. There's nothing wrong with that. You need those roles. But the roles that do, make sure you identify this. And explain to them like how they're going to get there. So we offer training, and this is an area that would grow into this, or this. It's not just, a narrow path, meaning once you funnel up, you may go here, you may go here. It's kind of up to you. One of the things that I'm very passionate about, that I love, and I'm glad really seems to be coming into our industry a lot more, is mentorship programs. And, Lisa, we've done other sessions where we've talked, 40 minutes just on this, but people really can learn a lot from people who are willing to share. And you said it just so lovely a minute ago. You said, as a company, you're willing to share because it's fine if you're doing what you are, practicing what you preach and what you put out there. It's okay for other people trying to emulate it. It's a compliment. They may not be able to do it as well as you, but at the end of the day, you're making our industry better by sharing, your secrets, if you will. And that's kind of how I feel about mentorship programs. I feel like in the past, it's been so competitive in our industry, and we've seen a big shift in that. And I really love that people are willing to kind of help. And I think part of that is because we do have a big portion of our industry that's going to be retiring or is on the path to retirement and going to be living out their lives at the beach, right? And we've got some younger people coming in. Well, you can't just expect those younger people to just know everything that we've all done since we were like 14, right? So having a path and a mentor or multiple mentors, depending on the path that they're going, and having people willing to do that, it's a win-win. The person that is mentoring really feels good about giving back. It's the same thing as, the gratitude. It takes no time or much effort really, but it makes you feel better, and the person that's receiving it feels better. That's kind of how a mentorship is. Somebody sharing their knowledge and their education and everything that they know with somebody. They feel good, and the person receiving it is generally so grateful. And then the last thing I'll talk here about it is continuing education options. If you want to retain employees, you have to allow them to want to better themselves. It's a win for your company. It's a win for them. It's a win for their confidence. And I think before, people kind of like, well, I don't want to invest that time and money and then go somewhere else. Well, that's always going to be an option, right? But if you build your company and your culture around your employees, and you have an environment where people want to stay and thrive and work, then that investment's going to pay back tenfold over. So at least I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about mentorships, because I know, we've talked about it in the past and how important they are.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you can seek out a mentor, male, female, doesn't matter. Somebody, it could even, inside the same industry, great. You may have multiple mentors. You may have an industry mentor. You may have, someone else outside of the industry that you greatly respect. But I think it is so important for all of us, because, you get on a path, and the sharing of that, of the resources and information and experience that we each have is second to none, right? I mean, I'm a lifelong learner, so every day I strive to learn something, right? That's a goal of mine. I'm like, I want to learn something new today. Sometimes I pile way too much on, and then, you think, wait, how am I retaining any of this? But having a mentor, just to kind of, again, be that compass. We all deal with similar frustrations, whether it be blending personal and professional, whether it be, industry hurdles, whatever the case may be. So, seek out a mentor. Alta is a great place to do that. Leslie and I met through Alta. I mean, there are certainly trade associations that are great resources, or, if you're a member of a Facebook community and you just keep, having the same information passed back and forth from people that you see that you really respect, reach out to those people. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I'd like to have a sidebar conversation with you about this certain topic. I think this is, it's something that resonated really strongly with me. Don't be afraid to reach out to others that have had more experience or different experiences. I think, we're all looking for connections nowadays, and more than ever. I think after our past 2 years, right, we want to just connect with people and make it meaningful. So, don't hesitate to find those people in your world, in your community, that would be great mentors. And they don't have to, be down the street. They can, now with technology, they can be anywhere. So if you just find that personality connection, go for it.
Yeah, and I'll close out here with something I see Wayne put in the chat, and I can't I can't, reiterate this enough, but a lot of times people that are mentors, or your mentor, people you're trying to follow, or, have an interest in the way that they've conducted themselves or business, sometimes they don't even know it. And so I think it's important to tell people, just like you said, Lisa, and like Wayne, you're saying, like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this and pick your brain. And I too love to learn all the time. And people ask me, why do you sit in sessions that you could be talking about? It's like, are you kidding? I learned so much from other people, or even just, wow, that's a much better way to explain it than I do, so you just have to be open, but you also have to like kind of reach out and let people know, like, I really respect you and the way that you've done this, and I would absolutely love to continue to work with you, and, kind of get your input on some things. You mentioned also real quickly about being outside the industry. I think there's something to that. It's great to kind of maybe have both, but somebody outside the industry is looking more of you as a person and the way you're conducting business, versus someone internally is more of like specific industry type things. So I think you could really benefit from really any type of mentorship. All of us can. So
true. And I just have one last thing to add, because I neglected to say it earlier, and I know we're at the end, and I know we're over on time. So I'm sorry, Wayne, but you're going to be glad I say this, Wayne. So when we were talking about telling the stories, one of the things that I just want to make sure I do mention is, don't get very specific, right, in figuring out what that is. Bo Digital helped us with our storyline, and we were all over the board, right? Because we just had 100 million things to say because we have such a great story and we wanted to say them all. And it was totally ineffective. So I wanted to kind of bounce back to that because I really neglected to talk about how it is very important to get very specific. And we didn't really see or notice that until we went through the storyline process with Wayne. So wanted to throw that in there. Don't let it become overwhelming. There's help out there, but certainly get specific because it will help your story a lot better.
Okay, well, sadly, we're out of time. I think obviously everybody can realize at this point that Lisa and I could talk for the next 6 hours if you're interested. So
give us wine and a charcuterie board. We can do that,
right? Done. Wayne has our contact information. We are more than happy to share anything. Both of us are open books. Any apps or any type of things that you're interested that we talked about, please just reach out. We're glad to respond or send stuff to Wayne. And also, Wayne, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Speaking of mentors in the industry, you guys have been mine for, can you believe this is my 10th year in the title industry specifically?
No,
so
no,
that's kind of crazy to think about, but I will definitely share your guys' contact information. We'll share Snappy and some of the other docs and links and stuff that you guys talked about with everybody, and appreciate you guys doing this for us today.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
You.